Hare Krishna, are all the devotees able to see the screen?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Hare Bol. Thank you so much. Okay, so the third chapter is about Karma Yoga. Okay, and before we start the class, please let us take the blessings of the beautiful deities of ISKCON Mangaluru, Sri Sri Radha Govindji. Sri Sri Radha Govindji ki jai. Okay. So earlier, like in the previous chapter, we saw Arjuna gives reasons why he does not want to fight. Out of that, one reason is like compassion first, and then second is no enjoyment, and then third is destruction of family, and then fear of sinful reactions. Fourth reason, and the fifth reason we saw is indecision. Like he was confused, he was not able to make a proper decision. Then that is when Arjuna he surrenders to Lord Krishna. Right? And so this is what we covered. So Krishna in the second chapter, then he starts speaking, and then he speaks the Jnana Yoga or Sankhya Yoga, and then he speaks about Karma Kanda. So second chapter is basically the summary. Okay, so he talks about Jnana Yoga or Sankhya, and then Karma Kanda and Buddhi Yoga or Nishkama Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. And finally, Arjuna asks Krishna the qualities or symptoms of a Sthita Prajna and of a pure Krishna conscious person. And then Krishna explains how a Sthita Prajna, he sits, walks, talks, fights, eats and everything. So he talks about that. Now in chapter 3, now we'll see in the first shloka itself, we see Arjuna gets confused. So we start chapter 3 with the question raised by Arjuna, and we'll see how Krishna gives the answers to that. So from 3.1 to 9, so it's the confusion whether renunciation or Nishkama Karma, which is better. Arjuna asks Krishna. And 3.10 to 16, from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga, the transformation Krishna talks about. And from 17 to 35, about Nishkama Karma Yoga. And from 36 to 43, what are the dangers of lust and anger and how to prevent it. Okay, so we'll see. Today we'll just try to do up to Sloka 16. Okay. So 3.1 to 9, dealing with the confusion, renunciation or working in Nishkama Karma. So all of you try to be proactive. I'll be asking questions. So we'll make it interactive so that your doubts get cleared away. Okay. Okay. So Arjuna's confusion. So in chapter 3, this is the gist. Okay. Arjuna is having a confusion whether renunciation or action. Okay. Whether I should renounce because Krishna says in the previous chapter, in chapter 2, he says, he talks about renunciation means Jnana Yoga or Sankhya. So in Sankhya, he says, kindly, all the devotees requesting them to be on mute. Only when required, please try to unmute yourself. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so Arjuna is asking renunciation or action. So renunciation means Krishna tells in chapter 2 about Sankhya or Jnana Yoga, where he tells that the people, they leave all the responsibilities, the Jnanis, they leave all the responsibilities and they run into the forest to meditate. So that is renunciation. So they don't do any work. They just go to the forest, sit and meditate. Or action. So finally in chapter 2, what does Krishna end with? Buddhi Yoga means work for Krishna, right? Dedicate whatever you do. It's not work. Anything that you do it to please Krishna. But here, action means what is Arjuna taking it as? Buddhi Yoga means he's thinking Buddhi is there. That word is there. So buddhi means he's thinking it is intelligence. So he's thinking that he got confused because Krishna, he gave so many concepts in chapter 2. He talked about Gnana or Sankhya Yoga, and then he talks about Karma Kanda, and then he talks about Buddhi Yoga. So many things he talks, right? So that's why probably Arjuna, he got confused. So, but per Krishna, Buddhi Yoga means what? Do whatever you're doing, do it to please me. Like you just do your duty to the 100%, and you leave the result to me. So that is Buddhi Yoga, what Krishna expected. But Arjuna, he got confused. He's thinking Buddhi Yoga means using your buddhi or intelligence, how not to fight this war. Because if you fight this war, there is so much of killing, and he will be losing all his relatives. So he's thinking he has to use his intelligence how not to fight, which is what he wanted. So he's thinking Buddhi Yoga is very nice. So that's why he's asking, Krishna, you're saying renunciation or Buddhi Yoga? Both means not fighting. But in the end of this second chapter, he says what? Finally, Krishna, so get up and fight Arjuna. Right? Per Krishna, it means that you leave the results to me. You fight and you leave the results to me. That is Buddhi Yoga. But Arjuna, he gets confused because Krishna explains so many topics. So he's got confused and he's thinking that Buddhi Yoga means just use your intelligence how not to fight. Okay, so he's thinking, you're telling me not to fight, but in the end again you're telling me get up and fight. As a Kshatriya, it's a responsibility to fight, so you get up and fight. Again, you're asking me to fight. So I'm not understanding what you're telling Krishna, he says. Okay, so he gets confused. So you tell me which is better, whether you want me to fight or not fight. See, he's asking. So let's see. No, so now from 3 to 16, renunciation means what? Gnana Yoga or Sankhya is difficult. Krishna says. So prescribed action with detachment means what? You do your duty. That is what detachment. Nishkama Karma Yoga means Buddhi Yoga. Right? So prescribed action with detachment, Nishkama Karma Yoga, is better for Arjuna. So one should go from Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda means what? Karma Kanda means with you do your duty with the expectation of some result. You want some fruitive result. To Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means you don't want any result, right? You do your duty to your 100%, but without any expectation of result, just to please Krishna. Okay, so 3 to 16 that. And 17 to 35, even if Arjuna is qualified for renunciation. See, Arjuna is a pure devotee. In fact, he is qualified to just go and renounce everything. Like he is a pure devotee and everything is, he's qualified for that, for going, for renouncing and living a sannyasi life. But what Krishna says, he should still continue Nishkama Karma Yoga. He should do Buddhi Yoga. Why? To set the right example. See, when elders, leaders in the society, generally people, what do? They follow the popular movie stars or politicians. They follow, right? So like that, Arjuna is a great personality. So whatever he does, the others will follow. Right? He's a king. So that's why Krishna didn't want him to renounce and go to the forest. But he wanted still, though he is capable of renouncement, he didn't want him to. So that he wanted him to set an example. Right? What great people do, the common people follow. So that's why Krishna advises him to do Nishkama, work to please Krishna rather than renouncing, just to set an example for the common people. And now from 36 to 43, lust is a formidable enemy on the path of yoga. So one should conquer lust by deliberate spiritual intelligence. So now lust is an obstacle on our spiritual progress, right? So how do we overcome that lust? That is being talked about from 36 to 43. So we'll see that there, okay? So now 3.1 to 2. So renunciation or work. Now Arjuna gets confused. As I've told you, right? What he's thinking is renunciation or work, right? So he gets confused between both of them. So Krishna, he gets confused. Buddhi Yoga means he thinks that using the intelligence, how to stop the war. so that all that bloodshed killing will not be there. Okay, so that is what he thinks, using intelligence, right? And renunciation, anyway, all of you know that, leaving your responsibilities and going into the forest, okay, without doing any work. So, but after all that, Krishna says, get up and fight. So now Arjuna is confused. What, Krishna? You're saying like renounce everything, and again in the end you're saying fight. So this is puzzling me. You tell me whether I should fight or not fight. So he's confused. He's asking Krishna for the suggestion. So now Krishna, he understood. See, I told all the yogas in chapter 2. So I think Arjuna, he got confused. Now I will clearly tell about Buddhi Yoga to Arjuna once again, and then he starts explaining again. Okay, what exactly is Buddhi Yoga? See, there are two ways, like this or that. What should I choose? Now Arjuna is asking Krishna, this or that. What is this? Ekam Vada. Tell me one thing, Krishna is saying. Ekam means one. Vada, you tell me one. Which is best? Either 2.11 to 30, Krishna explains about Sankhya or Gnana Yoga, right? You're the soul, that concept he explains. And then such people, they renounce and go to the forest. They leave their duties and responsibilities. They don't do any work and they go to the forest and meditate. Okay, you want me to do that? Or 2.38 to 53 is what? About devotional service, Buddhi Yoga, right? Per Krishna, what is this? What he wanted Arjuna to understand, Buddhi Yoga means, okay, Buddhi Yoga means do your duty. Your duty means you fight, but leave the results to me. That is what Buddhi Yoga Krishna meant. So that's why he says, get up and fight. But Arjuna, because he heard so many different kinds of yogas, he got confused. He's thinking Buddhi Yoga means, Buddhi means intelligence. So use your intelligence, how not to fight. That is what Arjuna wanted, right? He didn't want all that bloodshed and his relatives to be killed on the battlefield. So he says, oh, okay, you're telling me renounce and Buddhi Yoga means not to fight. But again, in the end, Krishna is saying, you fight. Say Arjuna is confused. What is this, Krishna? You're saying renounce and do, I mean, not to fight. Again, you're saying fight. So I'm confused. You tell me, one thing you tell me, what I have to do, whether I have to fight or not fight, what? Okay. See, connection between chapter 2 and chapter 3. That's what I've told you just now. There's a connection. See, to keep all abominable activities far distant by Buddhi Yoga. See, what is Arjuna thinking Buddhi Yoga means is written here. See, Arjuna thinks that Buddhi means intelligence. By using his intelligence, he should avoid all abominable activities and thus not fight. So he's thinking only intelligence, not work. I mean, like physically, he's not thinking. Buddhi Yoga means he's thinking only by using intelligence. But per Krishna, what is Buddhi Yoga? Work, right? You fight, but you leave the result to me. So he gets confused. He thinks using intelligence. Okay. So, and still Krishna is urging him to fight. In the end, again, he says, Krishna says, you fight. So Arjuna is not understanding that. See, and chapter 3, that's why begins with Arjuna's question to clarify this contradictory instruction. Okay, according to Arjuna, renunciation, gnana, and work are incompatible. So, obviously, he's thinking that gnana means what? Renunciation, no fighting. Work means fighting. So, both are incompatible for him. Both are like opposite corners for him. Okay, and incompatible. Okay, so this is the first shloka. Oops. Okay, so Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. So translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, Why do you want me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work? So that's what Arjuna is asking. See, you're telling me that intelligence is better than fruitive work. Then why are you asking me to work? So you're saying um, Buddhi Yoga means he's thinking that Buddhi Yoga is best, you are telling, right? Buddhi Yoga means what? Arjuna is thinking intelligence, using your intelligence. So that's what he's thinking. If you think intelligence is better than fruitive work means fight, right? You do some work, fight. So you are saying, finally he says Buddhi Yoga is the best, and Arjuna is thinking intelligence, that is the best. So if intelligence is best, then finally why are you telling me to fight again? So please clarify. Please tell me clearly what it is. See, all of you understood this question. Clarity is there for all of you. Confusion of Arjuna
Yes,
is clear for everybody.
Yes,
yes,
Mataji.
Haribol, Haribol. This is the main thing you should understand, okay? Before we enter into the thing, exact that thing should be understood. Okay. So he's asking the question. So let's see. Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tad ekam vada nishchitya yena shreyoham apnuyam. Uh, so Prabhupada by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So my intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. So now Arjuna is asking, I'm confused. Now you tell me which of the two is better. Okay. So now let's see what Krishna answers. So section 2 is Nishkama Karma Yoga. So Krishna, he understands Arjuna, because I told him so many yogas like Sankhya or Jnana Yoga, Karma Kanda, Karma Yoga, so many, Buddhi Yoga. I've told him so many things. So Arjuna, he has got confused. So let me again tell about Nishkama Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga. So Krishna again starts explaining. Okay, let's see what he explains. श्रीभगवान् उवाच लोकेऽस्मिन् द्विविधा निष्ठा पुरा प्रोक्ता मया नघा ज्ञानयोगेन साङ्ख्यानां कर्मयोगेन योगिनाम्. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Blessed Lord said, O sinless Arjuna, I've already explained that there are two classes of men who realize the self. Some are inclined to understand him by empirical philosophical speculation, and others are inclined to know him by devotional work. Okay, so now Krishna says that there are two classifications of people. Okay, so one are like the gnanis, right? Who speculate on God, right? And second are devotees, okay, who practice devotional service. So two types are there. So can anybody tell me like what is the general like process a gnani follows? How does he become a gnani? Like initially how he is, and how does he become a gnani, and how does he do a meditation on the impersonal Brahman? Does anybody know the process, like what exactly the gnani follows, and what is gnana yoga? Anybody knows? Anybody, whatever little you know, you can please share.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, please Mataji.
Not much I'm aware, but to some extent I am not very sure, but I'll just share. Like
Yeah.
it is maybe when they are into adult, that is Brahacharnam, then Grahacharanam, then knowing uh, what is the self-realization, then going away to sannyasi, something like that, to know the uh, when they go more spiritual, divine, maybe they will go away from the Grahacharanam. That is what I think so. I'm not very sure.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect, Mataji. Okay.
Mataji,
Yes, Prabhuji.
uh, Mataji, the difference is that the nanis, they meditate and they focus, emphasize towards the impersonal Brahman. and
correct.
the devotees, they emphasize towards Bhagwan Shri Krishna.
Correct, that is right. But what is the process followed, Prabhuji? Like, why do they want to follow that process? And what is the process they follow? How do they become jnanis and all that? That is the exact thing. Like,
That is
uh,
detachment, no, Mataji, getting detached with the first any desire they may have, they have to leave all the desires. Either it may be food or anything which is worldly, materialistic, then moving away from that to detached to something which they are
why do
focused.
why do they want to get detached, Mataji?
Because if they are attached, they will be still in the materialistic world. Their desire will be there. All the kama, krodha, lobha, everything will be there with them. When if they have to become a sannyasi or jnani to attain the realization or Paramatma or the Bhagavan to know, they should come out of all this materialistic. Then only they can realize what is the real truth. To know that only, I think they have to leave all these things.
Hari bol, Hari bol. Correct, Mataji, correct. Thank you
Haribol.
so much. Most of you are having nice knowledge. We'll try to understand. It's very nice that you all could give wonderful answers. So we'll just try to know like what for Prabhupada, what exactly is the flow of a gnani. So now Krishna here is telling two people, right? So one is gnani, right? So he understands God through philosophical speculation, and the other is devotee. So let's know how a gnani, like what is a gnani first. Okay, the gnani first, what he does, I mean, he's not a gnani in the beginning. Like first, what he does is that particular yogi, he studies the Vedas and the Upanishads, right? So when he studies the Vedas and the Upanishads, he understands that he is not the body. See, Sankhya basically means knowledge through the Vedas and the Upanishads. These people, they think they are intelligent and they don't accept any guru. So on their own, they bring these books, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and they start reading. Okay, the knowledge, they absorb that knowledge by themselves. Okay, they think they're so intelligent, they don't need a guru, so they start reading these books, these Vedas, Upanishads, they read, and they understand by reading them that they are not the body and they are the soul. They understand that the body and the whole world is temporary. Okay, and they understand that by doing sense gratification or sense pleasure, that is the reason for bondage, right? See, if you do any sense gratification, you do anything for your pleasure, it is like you get some karma, be it good or bad karma, right? So to enjoy that good or bad karma, you have to come back to the material world, right? Enjoy or suffer that. So they understand that concept. So if you stay in the material world, obviously you will do sense gratification. Then there will be karma. Again, if karma is there, you have to come back here. So that's why they develop detachment. Okay, so through this knowledge they develop detachment. Okay, so he develops a disinterest in sense enjoyment because he understands that that is the root cause, right? If I stay in the material world, I will do sense gratification, then obviously karma binds me, then I have to keep on roaming in the cycle of birth and death. That's why he gets through this knowledge, he understands that detachment to this material world is important for me. So that's why he gets disinterested in sense enjoyment, because he understands if I do, and that's why he tries to renounce. Why? Because if he knows that if he stays and continues to do his duties and responsibilities, so doing duties and responsibilities means what? It is karma only, right? If you do some duty or responsibility, you will get a good or a bad this thing reaction for that karma. That's what they don't want. So that's why they try to get detached from this material world. Okay, so they leave duties and responsibilities and they renounce. They don't even do their prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Vedas. So they they avoid their social and occupational responsibilities, and they renounce life. Okay, after renouncing life, and they what do they try to do? They control their senses. Now they artificially try to control their senses now. See, everybody, please remember this process, what I'm telling, okay? So that it will be easy for you in the future shlokas to understand. So this is the way the Gnanis follow, okay? and then they try to control their senses by force. Okay, so they try to avoid all the sense objects. They sit quietly. No, 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 I should not see that. No, 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 I should not hear this. No, 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 I should not eat this. No, I should not do with this with my hands. So everything they forcefully they control. Okay, they restrict everything by force and not positively. But how do the devotees generally do? They don't forcefully restrain their senses. They use the same senses, the eyes, the mouth, the nose, ears, everything in the service of Krishna. Positive engagement is there. Okay, there's no force or restriction, restraint, or anything is not there on the senses. They positively engage the senses in Krishna consciousness. But here, forcefully, but how long can you forcefully suppress? See, for instance, if I say a gulab jamun. So, for instance, for your spiritual progress, you are said that you should not eat gulab jamun. But earlier, when you were there in your material life, you had that gulab jamun. You know the taste of that gulab jamun. So, even if you forcefully stop eating the gulab jamun, but you still have that desire you want to eat because you know the taste of that gulab jamun. If not now, not 1 week, 1 month, after 2 months, that will surely burst up and it will come up. Definitely it will come up if you forcefully stop your this thing. So that is not, I mean, that Krishna actually tells later that that is not good. So let's not go to that. Let's just come here. So these people, they try to control the senses by force. Like no positive engagement. They forcefully, no, I should not talk to ladies. That's why they come into the forest and they sit there and they meditate. Right? No, even before meditating, they come first. They control their senses. They should control their senses, right? So for that, they without engagement. I mean, like without any positive engagement, they don't do work, right? So there's no positive engagement like the devotees. The devotees, they use their senses to work for Krishna. They just sit and they say, no, I should not talk to the ladies. No, I should not eat this. No, I should not hear this. Like that, they forcefully restrain and keep themselves. Okay, and later, after that, then they meditate on the impersonal Brahman. And why do they meditate on the impersonal Brahman? There's a specific reason for that also. Why do they see? We said, right, they speculate. They don't want to keep God as, because devotees like us go and tell them that if you worship, you do devotional service to Krishna, you will go back to Godhead. So then these people, they get scared. Oh my God. So again, after I get liberated also, there also, again I have to go and serve God over there. Means what? Serving for them means what? Again, karma. Serving God means what? Doing some activity. So again, they think that there will be karma for that. They don't understand that there's no karma over there. So they think that, oh, if I serve God, again there will be karma. Then what is the use of my doing so much tapasya? And even after liberation, if I get karma. So that's why they assume that God has no form. See, if God has no form, then they don't have to serve. If they don't serve, there is no karma. So that's why they believe in this concept of impersonal Brahman. They say that God is light or God is energy. So that's why they mentally concoct. They create God. They don't want that personal form. They don't want to meditate in the personal form, because if they do on the personal form, after liberation from the devotees, they hear that you have to go and serve Krishna there. So serving or doing some activity for them is like karma, good or bad karma again, right? They think, oh my God, we left the material world because there is karma. And even after liberation, then again karma is there. Why should we meditate so much? So that's why they come to this conclusion, no, we don't want personal form. We'll do the impersonal form. So impersonal means there is just light. So we can't do any service. So no karma. So that's why they will meditate on the impersonal form of the Lord. Okay, so this is why they meditate like that. And one more thing I want to tell, I told you, right? So because they don't work, they don't engage their senses positively in the service of Krishna. They just sit and meditate. So because of which their what do you say? We've discussed, right, that the senses are not controlled, they are not purified, right? See, I gave you the example of that gulab jamun. See, the gulab jamun, he knows the taste. He has the taste for that gulab jamun. Okay, but though he tries to control, some one or the other day it has to burst out. It will come out. But the devotees, what do? They engage the senses positively. The same gulab jamun, they offer it to the Lord and they happily eat it. Is that better or forcefully restraining? Sorry. Okay, is that better, or forcefully restraining and controlling that better, or offering it to the Lord and happily eating that is better, right? So these people, they don't purify their senses, because of which the desires are still there in their mind. But outwardly they pose as nanis or like great renunciants, like great sannyasis they pose, but inside they are still not purified, right? They still have those desires, right? Which is of no use, right? When you renounce everything, your mind should be purified. Then you meditate on God, right? But if you still have material desires in your mind, outwardly you're just showing that you're a sannyasi, you're very spiritually elevated, but inside you're still having those material desires. Then you're just a false pretender. So that is of no use, right? So that's what Krishna says. That's why that is not the best thing. So such people, what happens? One day, what will happen? They will give in to those desires without anybody saying. He will have that gulab jamun. So it means he's pretending. What is the use of such renunciation when he's not purified of his desires? When he's not materially purified, his senses are not purified. Outward, he is showing as he's a sannyasi, but inward, he is not purified. So definitely, he will give in to the desire. He will come back to his old habits because he's not purified, and then he will again fall into the material world. So what is the use? Again he will be roaming in that cycle of birth and death. What is the use of such renunciation? So that's why Krishna says this, better than doing this, following buddhi yoga is better, he says. So that's why what is the devotees, that's why they do, they engage all their senses in the service of Krishna. They work, right? They do devotional service means what? It is working for Krishna. It is not just sitting and meditating on Krishna. So we work for Krishna, physically work, right? We work for Krishna. We think of Krishna. We chant for Krishna. We read, we hear, we do devotional. We go to the temple. We do garland seva, prasadam distribution, book distribution. So much we do, right? We engage all our senses because we are directly engaging our service in Bhagavan, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The senses need not be separately purified. Just by doing devotional service, they will automatically be purified. But actually, those who are doing Gnana Yoga or Sankhya, they have to first purify their senses by doing prescribed duties. Right? They have to do, by doing prescribed duties, they have to purify their senses. Then only they should go into a forest and start their meditation. Once the senses are purified only, then there will be no material desires. Then they can meditate on God. Otherwise, it's like just false pretension. So that's why Krishna says you work. Working is better rather than renunciation. Okay, so here that's why Krishna says some are inclined to understand him by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others are inclined to know him through devotional. So one is a Gnani and other is a Bhakta, devotee. So he's telling two kinds of people are there. So now let's see what next he says. See the difference. See, this is the difference between Sankhya Yoga and Buddhi Yoga. Now, clearly we'll see. See, Sankhya Yoga means philosophical speculation. They speculate that God is impersonal. He's light. They come to that conclusion. And Buddhi Yoga means nothing but Krishna consciousness, And it's Sankhya Yoga is indirect path. Why is it indirect path? Because you're meditating on the impersonal form. You're not meditating on the direct form of Krishna, the personal form of Krishna as Bhagavan. You're meditating on indirect path. Indirectly, the effulgence that is coming from the body of Krishna, you're meditating on. So that is why it is indirect path. And Krishna consciousness is the direct path because you're directly meditating on Krishna, Bhagavan. Okay. And the second, Sankhya Yoga, dependence on personal endeavor. So they depend on their personal effort. They think they're intelligent. That's why they read these Vedas, Upanishads, the Sanskrit, and all those difficult slokas, everything they read by their own, and they come to an understanding. So dependence on personal endeavor. And Buddhi Yoga is dependence on Krishna's mercy. See, in Bhakti Yoga, we depend on the mercy of Krishna, right? We just do our effort and we depend on the mercy, like what it's up to Krishna, like what he wants to give us in Bhakti. How we progress in Bhakti is totally dependent. See, if we want to get a taste for chanting, we pray to Krishna. It's not that if we put effort, that taste will come. No. We pray to Krishna, please give me that taste, Krishna. So it's purely based on the mercy of Krishna. And here I told you, right, it's unsure of success, right? Why they fall down to the material pool? We've discussed, right? Because the senses are not purified. They have those material desires and they renounce. Okay. And because of those material desires, they again come back to their old ways, right? Old bad activities, and they fall into the material pool. That's why success is not guaranteed. But here in Bhakti Yoga, success is guaranteed because we are worshipping directly Krishna, right? So we will surely go back to Godhead. And Sankhya Yoga, initial purification is required by prescribed duty. So we've discussed this also. See, so for the senses to be purified, first we have to work. How? By doing our prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Vedas. See, for everything, for a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, in the Vedas, there are some prescribed duties for purification. So, if we do that, our senses are purified. So, a Gnani, first he should do this purificatory work, right? He should follow the Vedas and he should do those prescribed duties so that he can purify himself. Then he should start meditating. Once the senses are purified, then he should once he is purified, then he should start meditation. So especially he has to put that effort of purification. But in Krishna consciousness, we don't have to specially undergo purification because we are already meditating on Krishna. All our senses are engaged on Krishna. In serving, doing devotional service to Krishna, we don't have to, they automatically get purified. Okay, by doing devotional service, our senses are seeing Krishna, our ears are hearing Krishna Katha, our mouth is talking about Krishna and it is having Krishna Prasadam, our hands are engaged in serving Krishna, we walk with our legs to the temple of Krishna, right? So automatically everything is purified. So we don't have to separately do all those like prescribed duties, we don't have to do. So whatever Krishna service we are doing, we are everything is automatically we get purified. So we don't have to do anything extra. But just by doing devotional service, everything is sufficient. Okay. So these are the differences. So hope all of you understood the differences, right, between Sankhya Yoga and Buddhi Yoga.
Mataji,
Yeah.
what is that ends and means are there? Something is blocking that.
Sorry, ends and means are the same. So Krishna consciousness, they mean to say that Krishna consciousness right from the start till the end is purifying itself because we are directly doing devotional service to Krishna Bhagavan himself. So Krishna consciousness itself is a purificatory process. Okay. Because we are engaging a whole of our body, the eyes, everything in the service of Krishna. So automatically they get purified. We don't have to separately purify like the Gnanis. Right? Gnanis, they are like materialistic people totally. They don't know, like what they're, initially they are not, they just, because they wanted to escape the pain of the material world, they are trying to renounce because they know that this material world is horrible, it's a miserable place. They didn't want any karma, bad or good karma. They want to escape this material world. So that's why they run to the forest, they renounce. But here, the bhaktas, they develop love for Krishna, right? So that is the big difference. These people, they're not interested in God or something initially. Just because they want to their only aim is they want to get liberated. That's why their concept of God is not like out of love they meditate on God. They meditate so that they can get liberated and they can be freed from the pain. So that is their intention actually. Okay. So this is clear? I mean, like the difference between Sankhya and Buddhi Yoga?
Yes, Mataji.
Or is it so heavy? It's okay?
Yes,
Yes,
Mataji.
Mataji. Yes, yes.
Mataji,
Yes, Prabhuji.
Mataji, in the Sankhya Yoga,
Huh.
in the Sankhya Yoga, people normally try to understand through speculation.
Yeah, that's what they do now. They see that's why why do they speculate? They speculate because see, now devotees like us will go and tell them, see, you meditate on Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then after liberation you will go and serve Krishna there. So then they get scared, these people, right? Speculation means what? They say, oh, it could be like this, it could be like that. They be just what do you say, guessing. So everything they want to turn it in their favor because the only intention is they want liberation. They want freedom from this material world somehow or the other. Okay, so that's why these people, they speculate saying that if God has a form, then after liberation we will go to God. There also we'll serve God. Then if we serve God, there again karma will be there. Means serving God means that is some activity. So activity if you're doing means what? There'll be good or bad karma. They are scared. Oh my God, we left the material world because there is activity. We'll get good or bad karma. And that's why we've come here to the forest and we are meditating so that there'll be no activity for us, no work. That's why we are sitting and meditating here. But if there is activity after we die also, then what is the use? Again, karma will be there. So that's why they think, okay, then the best thing is God has no form. If God has no form, then happily we can there'll be no service. If God has form, if God is like, what service will we do? If God has form, we can put him a garland or we can put him an ornament, we can dress him up, we can bathe him or something we can do. But if God is impersonal, he has no form, no activity, so they're happy. So that's why they speculate, okay, God has no form. They create their own philosophy. They say God has no form. Then they're happy. That's why they say after liberation, we will directly go and merge into God. We become one with God. So they don't want their individuality also. They want to become one with God and lose their individuality. That's all. Okay, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Hari bol. Yeah. So 3.4. न कर्मणाम् अनारम्भान् नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते न च सन्न्यसनाद् एव सिद्धिं समाधि गच्छति. So, translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So here what is Krishna saying? Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. See, na karmanam arambhan. So karmana means what? Prescribed duties. You have to do prescribed duties. Okay, to get purified. See, not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction. See, these jnanis, they think that by leaving the prescribed duties or not doing their duties and responsibilities and renouncing and going into the forest, that Krishna is saying you don't get freedom from reaction. there will be karma. Okay, don't think that if you just leave your roles and responsibilities, there will be no karma. Nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. See, compulsory you have to do prescribed duties so that you get purified. If you directly just leave your roles, I mean, duties and responsibilities and go into the forest and you don't control your senses. See, your senses you are controlling by force, as we discussed earlier. They are not yet purified. So outwardly you're showing yourself as a sannyasi, but inside you still have those material desires. So you are still not purified. So first you have to get purified. That's why they are saying you have to work. Krishna is saying you have to do your prescribed duties. Only after you do your prescribed duties, you will get purified. Your senses will be purified. Then you will have no material desires. Then you can go. Then you can renounce. Then you are a perfect sannyasi. Otherwise, you are not a perfect sannyasi. That's what Krishna is trying to say here. See, just by leaving your duties and responsibilities and going into the forest and being there, you don't become a sannyasi. Maybe outwardly you are looking like a sannyasi, but inward you have all those material desires. So you are pretending to be a sannyasi, a spiritual person, but inside all those material desires are not yet gone. Okay, so first, what they're saying, first you have to purify your desires. Right? How can you do that? By performing your prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Vedas. So you have to, for that you have to work first, not directly renouncing, directly leaving your duties and responsibilities and renouncing and going to the forest. No, first you have to work. That's why Krishna is giving importance to work. So work, do your prescribed duty, what is mentioned in the Vedas, because by doing that you will get purified. So once you get purified, that is when you can take sannyas. Okay, once your senses are purified, that is when you can take sannyas. Then you'll have no more material desires. Okay, so that is what Krishna is trying to say here. Okay, so you can't get perfection directly just by leaving your duties and responsibilities and renouncing and sitting and meditating. Okay, you have to first work by purifying by your prescribed duties. You have to work, and then once you get purified, then you're a real sannyasi. Okay. Now 3.5. Nahi kaschit kshanam api jatu tishtati akarmakrit कार्यते हि अवशः कर्म सर्वः प्रकृतिर्जय गुणैः. So Hare Krishna. So here everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something even for a moment. Okay, so in 3.5, what is Krishna saying? See, now he's saying, see, in this material world, everybody, we cannot stay calm even for a moment, right? We are bound up by the three modes of material nature, right? So, by which we are forced to do some or the other activity, be it in the mode of goodness or tamo, rajo, and sattva. In these three modes, we are forced to act because the soul is active by nature, and the soul, that's why it forces the body also to be active. See, even if you think that the body is not physically active, the mind is active always. See, you may think that I'm just sitting lazily on a couch or sleeping on a bed. Don't think you're inactive. Your body may be inactive, but your mind is active. That means you're still active. Okay, so even if your mind is active, it means you're active, because the mind, it can never stop thinking. It is always thinking. It is always busy. Okay, so here Krishna is telling everyone is forced to act helplessly. See, these three modes, somehow, whatever be the reason, it will not make you sit calmly. You may think that I'm just sitting without doing any work, but you are through the mind. Okay, so everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So they see, you can observe yourself every day. You can never sit active, even without being active for even a second. Even when you're sleeping, also, you may think that you're sleeping at night, but your mind keeps working. Because when some sound comes, automatically you get up. That means because the mind is active, it could alert you. It could make you hear that sound. That's why you could get up. Right? The mind, and that's why you get dreams also. Right? You dream, right? So like that. So you are never, you're always active, either through the mind or physically or however through the mind. But because the soul is active, it forces the body to be active. So you are never, the modes somehow or the other, they impel you to do some work. Okay, so that's what trying to say here. And that's why they're saying these people, the Sankhya people, not possible. They are just sitting and just sitting. No, forcefully they're trying to control their senses. No, not this. So that's why that is not possible. That is why Krishna is saying, first they have to work. They have to do their prescribed duties. Right? They have to do their prescribed duties, purify, get purified, and then accept renunciation. Means accept the life of a sannyas. Right? So the soul is active by nature. It has to do something or the other. So just sitting and meditating without doing any work is Krishna is not accepting. Okay. Okay, so let's go to see the same thing he's given here. Okay, we'll just see the PPT, you'll get a better understanding. So see, this is the soul. Okay, so the soul is active in nature, so it must act. Okay, and it needs engagement. If it's active, means it needs some engagement. So if it's occupation dictated by illusory energy, so it has to do either material work. Illusory energy means material energy, maya. Okay, it should be engaged in some activity in the material world. See, doing something, whatever, your daily duties, like whatever, earning or cooking or whatever you do, your daily activities per maya. Okay, you do. Okay, but devotees, they do the devotional activities. The materialistic people in maya do this. Devotees do spiritual activities. But the soul must be active. Okay, so either you do this or you do that. Either you're in maya or in Krishna. Okay. Okay, so if the soul is in contact with material nature, see, now they're talking about jnanis, right? In contact with material nature, acquires mode of material nature. Not jnanis, generally, like material people they're talking about. See, when they're in contact with material nature, they're by default, they're bound. They're like puppets in the hands of the modes of material nature. Okay, so those they are very materialistic. They're full of sense gratification, right? Material people means they want comfort, sense gratification, all those. And because of those three modes, they are more and more attached to sense gratification. But if you want to get purified, what should you do? You should do do the prescribed duties recommended in the shastras. If you want to purify yourself from all those material desires, what you should do? You should see for the shastras, what are the prescribed duties recommended? Those you should do. What will happen if you do the prescribed duties that are mentioned in the shastras? You become purified. See, purifies the soul from affinities. Affinities means all those material desires, lobha, kama, krodha, mada, matsarya. It purifies you from all those when you do your prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Shastras. Okay, that leads to Krishna consciousness. If you don't do all this, it is a failure. As I told you, right? Now, the Gnani, he doesn't do all these prescribed duties. Directly, he leaves all his duties and responsibilities. He comes into the forest and he sits there. He says, no, 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 not this. With the senses, forcefully he tries to control the senses. And he will not be able to control one fine day. Because his senses are not purified, he will not be able to control. One day he will give in to his bad habits. Because of which, again, he will fall into the material pool again. He will come back to his old habits again. So that's why they're saying, first you do your prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Shastras, you get purified, then you accept sannyas. Okay. Hope all of you have got a clear idea. Is it okay? Hare Krishna. Why no response from the devotees?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I said today it will be like a little bit tough. That's why please focus, and wherever doubts are there, you please stop me. If you are not able to proceed further, please stop me. Okay, thank you. Yeah, see, this is what happens if you don't do your prescribed duties, and you just renounce. You renounce your duties and responsibilities. That is what they're saying in the shloka. You see that sannyasi, he is pretending outside like a sannyasi, but what is he having in his hand? He's smoking a cigarette. So is that good? Anybody?
No, no,
Yeah.
Mataji.
Yeah, exactly. He is a false pretender. He is not a true sannyasi. And he's nicely holding that phone. See how happily, royally he is using such a phone, costly phone, and he's drinking a cigar luxuriously. Right? So he's a false pretender. So let's see what Krishna says. Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudhatma mityacharah sai uchyate. So, translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, one who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects. See, mind is still on sense objects, material desires, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Okay, see, such people, they are called pretenders. See, outwardly they show because they are still not purified inside. Outwardly they try to show that they are sannyasis, but inside they still have those material desires. Material desires are not gone, so they are not yet purified. So that's why Krishna is saying, first you purify. Renouncing does not mean you leave your work, your roles, your duties and responsibilities and run into the forest and sit and meditate there. First, you should control your senses. For that, you have to purify yourself by doing the prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Shastras. You have to get purified. Only after purifying, only after doing after working or doing your prescribed duties per the Shastras, you will get purified. Then you are, eligible for taking sannyas. Then you can renounce. Then you're a perfect sannyasi. Otherwise, you are like outside you're portraying as a sannyasi. Outside you're showing as you wear orange robes and everything. You kamandalu, you have everything. You have long beard, everything you have. But inside you still have those material desires. You're still not purified. So you're a false pretender. Okay, so that's what Krishna is saying. 3.7 Yastu indriyani manasa niyam yarabate arjuna karmendriyaihi karmayogam asaktah sa vishishyate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. So, what is Krishna saying? On the other hand, he's talking about the devotee. So, you can see in the picture, right? So, in Jagannath Puri, it's the ritual. I think all of you know that the king, he takes the golden broom and he sweeps in front of the Rath. When Jagannath is coming on the Rath, the it has become a tradition. So yeah, they take a broom and they sweep the floor in front of the Rath. Okay, that is like doing devotional service. The king doing that is like very, what do you say? Generally, the kings don't do such things, right? So the king, it is a ritual that they clean. So it's like doing devotional service to the Lord. So Krishna is saying what here? He tries to control the active senses by the mind. So he uses all his senses in the service to the Lord. And he begins karma yoga. What is karma yoga? You work for to please Krishna, right? You do your 100% and you leave the result to Krishna. So main thing is you do any work to please Krishna without any attachment, in the sense not for your sense gratification. You do it to please Krishna. So Krishna is saying that is much superior, that is much better. So you do that. So you do karma yoga. That's what Krishna is telling. So you work for Krishna without any attachment to the results, right? Don't do it for your sense gratification. Do it to please Krishna. Okay, you just do your duty and leave the results to Krishna. That is much better, he's saying. Instead of being a false pretender or being a sannyasi, you still have those material desires inside and you're behaving like a false pretender. That is of no use. Instead of that, you engage all your senses, you do your duty for Krishna, and without expecting any results, you leave the results to Krishna. Just do it to please Krishna. Okay. See, same thing here. Okay. See, one who restrains senses but mind dwells on sense objects is a pretender, right? So one who forcefully controls his senses but his mind is still on that particular object, he is a pretender. See, pretender means he's the greatest cheater, because outside he's showing himself as a sannyasi, but inside he still has all those material desires. So shows to be in deep meditation. See, outside as if he'll close his eyes like this and he will sit nicely as if he's meditating happily. But mind dwells. But when he's closing his eyes and meditating, he will be thinking about those material objects only. He will not be thinking on God or something. He'll be thinking about those material objects. Okay? And such a person, if he gives some spiritual education or philosophy also, that is of no value. Right? So knowledge is stolen by illusory energy of the Lord. So Maya. So knowledge obviously is stolen by Maya. He has all those material desires. So his knowledge is stolen by Maya. So no, his philosophy is of no value. See, so instead of that, what should you do to purify the senses? See, for sense enjoyment, per the Shastras, that is why if you want to, the Shastras never say you don't do sense enjoyment. They said you do sense enjoyment. But for that also, there are some rules and regulations which you follow. For a brahmachari, see, now that's what they're trying to say. See, social orders, brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. See, follow rules and regulation of orders. Then gradual purification. That's why they're saying in the Shastras, there are like you work, they'll give you some rules and regulations. Based on that, if you do your prescribed duties, slowly there will be purification. Okay, Shastra never says don't do sense gratification. Do sense gratification, but with some rules and regulations. So if you do with such rules and regulations, you will get purified gradually. Okay. See, a sincere person controls, a sincere person, he controls the senses, mind, engages in karma yoga without attachment. See, a sincere person, he directly he engages his mind and senses in devotional service to Krishna. Okay, he works for Krishna, so he's not artificially suppressing his senses or mind, whatever. So he's using his eyes to see the beautiful form of Krishna. His ears also he's using to hear Harikatha, and his mouth and his nose to smell the flowers flowers and tulsi that are offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, and tongue to taste Krishna Prasadam and to talk about Krishna. So everything, he uses in the a sincere person, a bhakta, he uses it in the service of Krishna, without any interest for himself, just to please Krishna. So that is far superior, Krishna is saying, okay? So 3.8. Niyatam kuru karma tvam karma jyayo hi akarmanaha sharira yatra pichate na prasiddhyet akarmanaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. See, that's why you first do your prescribed duty. It is not working and renouncing and going to the forest. First, you do your prescribed duties and then you will be purified. Then you renounce, then you take sannyas. That is what Krishna is saying. See, one cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Right? See, even to maintain our physical body, we have to work, right? We can't say, I'm soul, I don't want to work. No, right? To keep this, we have to maintain this body and soul together. So for that, we need money, right? For that, we have to work, right? So that's why they're saying, anyway, you have to work. So do your prescribed duty, what is mentioned in the Shastras, right? So by doing that, you will also get purified. So that's why Krishna is saying you work. Okay, do your prescribed duty that is mentioned in the Shastras. Okay, so actually in the PPT, after the 9th shloka, they will show you the flow. I will tell you that also, okay? Yagnarthat karmano anyatra loko yam karma bandhana tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangaha samachara. So translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. See, anything that you do for Krishna, it becomes a karma. Anything that you do for yourself becomes karma. Means if you are doing it for yourself, you have to you have good karma or bad karma, for which you have to come back to this material world to enjoy or suffer. That's what they're saying. See, work done for Krishna has to be performed. Then there'll be no bondage. Otherwise, work, if you do it for yourself, it causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. So that's why Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you perform your prescribed duties. See, as a Kshatriya, your prescribed duty is to fight. So that's why you fight for Krishna's satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So Krishna himself is asking Arjuna to fight. And what is his prescribed duty? His prescribed duty as a Kshatriya is to fight. So he's saying, you fight for me. Like that, if you do, there will be no bondage for you. Right? So that's what Krishna is saying. So that's why you do your prescribed duties. You will get purified. Okay? So if any activity that you do for Krishna will free you from bondage, but any activity, if you do it for yourself, it binds you to this material world. So that's why Krishna is saying, do your prescribed duty. Okay, without attachment. Do it as an offering to me. Okay. See, the 8th shloka I was saying that, see, performing prescribed duties is better than not working. Okay. See, prescribed duties, performing. See, if you do prescribed duties, what happens? Further mentioned in the Shastras, gradually purification of heart happens. But if you directly go without doing the prescribed duties, if you renounce, what will happen? You will fall down. Since there is no purification has not yet happened, and that material desires still remain. So that's why you will fall down again into this material pool. So directly you should never give up work and go and accept sannyas. So first you should do the prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Shastras, which will purify you. So then you will become pure and you will have no material desires. That is the correct time for you to renounce and take sannyas. Okay, you should not just because you want liberation, directly, immediately I will leave duties and responsibilities. I will not work. and then after you go into the forest and you sit there and start meditating, you will still have those material desires in your mind. Though you're closing your eyes like this, your mind is still on all this material. Oh, I'm not able to eat this. I'm not able to hear that. I'm not able to do this. So you'll be with those thoughts only. What is the use of such sannyas? So one fine day you will give in. Oh no, you think that, oh no, I want to fulfill my material desires, and then you will go and give in, and then again finally you'll fall down you'll come back to your old bad habits. You'll fall down again into the material world again. So that's why first you should purify your heart by performing your prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Shastras. Once you get purified, that is the correct time for you to accept sannyas. Hare Krishna, please be on mute. The devotees, like, I can hear some voice. Yeah, thank you. So Arjuna, what is Arjuna's prescribed duty? Arjuna is a Kshatriya and a Grihastha. So what he should do? He should engage himself in war, not that renounce and go to the forest. Arjuna was telling Krishna, right? No, I don't want to kill my relatives. Instead, I will go into the forest and renounce. Okay, so no, that's what Krishna is saying. No, you fight. You're a Grihastha and you're a Kshatriya. Your prescribed duty is to fight in the war and not renounce and go to the forest. So you fight. So work should not be given up capriciously. So without purification of materialistic propensities. See, without, we should not just try to renounce immediately, right? The material world. First, we have to get purified. How do we get purified? By doing the prescribed duties that are mentioned in the Shastra. Say the Brahmana has his prescribed duties, the Kshatriya has his prescribed duties, the Vaishya has his prescribed duties, like Shudra also has their prescribed duties. So if you do those, we get purified gradually, then we are ready to take sannyas. Okay, then we can give up work and then we can do sannyas at that time, because we have no more material desires, we are purified at that time. Okay. So 9th shloka, perform work as a sacrifice to Vishnu or work causes bondage. So this also we saw, right? See, action or work performed for satisfaction of Krishna or Vishnu is not binding, right? It is liberating. Okay. And when you act under the guidance of a spiritual master, you gradually elevate and develop transcendental loving service to the Lord. See, who gives us the guidance? It's the spiritual master, right? Like Prabhupada is our spiritual master who gives us all this knowledge. Because of Prabhupada, we are able to read and understand the Bhagavad Gita, right? So we are not able to know something about Krishna, right? So act under the guidance of a spiritual master. Gradually, what happens? Because of our spiritual master's blessings, we gradually elevate and develop transcendental loving service of Lord. Then we go back to Godhead. Okay, kingdom of God. So otherwise, if you don't do work for the satisfaction of Krishna, what happens? Otherwise, action causes bondage, right? You do everything for your sense gratification. If you don't do for satisfaction of Vishnu, then Vishnu or Krishna, you do for yourself. When you do for yourself, there is good or bad karma. So again, you have to come back to suffer or enjoy that. So you are caught up in this cycle of birth and death. Okay, sense gratification, good action, bad action are there. And so you are in that caught up in the cycle of birth and death. Okay, so this is the yoga ladder. See, generally, this is the extended, this is the full long course, they say, right? The full extended yoga ladder, how we follow. See, first, all of us were in this animal life where we thought that human life means what? Only just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Okay, from that life, we come to karma kanda. Karma kanda means we do something with the expectation of something, right? That is also sense gratification. That is also on the material platform, karma kanda. And sakama karma yoga means you still want benefit. But you do it to please Krishna, right? You do the activity to please Krishna, but you want the benefit. Okay, so that is Sakama Karma Yoga. Nishkama Karma Yoga means you do your duty, but you give the result to Krishna. So you do it to please Krishna. Okay, so that is Nishkama Karma Yoga. That is the next stage. And then after Nishkama Karma Yoga, then Gnana Yoga. Gnana Yoga means no work. You give up work also. Okay, and then you come to Ashtanga Yoga. And then final is Bhakti Yoga. See, Bhakti Yoga is the highest. So why do you want to do all this karma kanda, sakama karma, nishka, all this? Instead of all this, what do they say is the best thing? This is the longest ladder. So next, this is the progressive, little bit less. What animal life, you come to karma kanda, sakama karma yoga, then you do sadhana bhakti, directly you go to bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. Okay. So what is the express? See, would anybody like to take the, see, if there are 100 floors in a building, would you like to take the stairs or stairs? You would like to climb the stairs, or would you like to take an elevator? What would you prefer?
Obviously elevated.
Yeah, so we don't want to take the ladder, right? We don't want to climb the stairs slowly. So what are they saying? So the first one is the express elevator. So that is the shortest. When we know finally it is Bhakti Yoga, why should I undergo Karma Kanda, Sakama Karma Yoga, Nishkama Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga? Why should I Ashtanga Yoga? I don't want to do all this. I directly want to do Bhakti Yoga. When I know finally I have to come to Bhakti Yoga, so I will do Bhakti Yoga. What is the express elevator? That's why they're saying, see, we were all first in the animalistic life. So then what happened? By Krishna's mercy and Guru's mercy, we come under surrender and association of pure devotees. See, that's how we come. Like one pure devotee comes, he comes to us with a book on I mean, like on during book distribution month, or like on Vaikuntha Ekadasi, he comes with a book to us. That's how we come into Krishna conscious, right? We come in association with pure devotees through prasadam or through book distribution or something or the other. We just come in contact, right? So once we come in that association of pure devotees, we start doing a sadhana bhakti. What is sadhana bhakti? We chant our Hare Krishna mantra, 16, minimum 16 rounds of chanting. We attend the Mangala Arati. We listen to Vaishnava speeches. We read Prabhupada books. We do devotional service, right? And then after doing sadhana bhakti, but sadhana bhakti is, what is sadhana bhakti? We don't have initial love for Krishna. So to actually, love is there for everybody. Love for Krishna is there in everybody, but it is dormant. So to awaken that, we are doing sadhana bhakti. See, we don't have love for Krishna. We have love for our family members, love for our children, love for our husband, love for our wife, our parents. We have our relatives. We have, but we don't have love for Krishna, right? So to reawaken that love for Krishna, we do sadhana bhakti by following some rules and regulations. Okay, so once we start doing that sadhana bhakti, slowly we get purified by when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. We do all these sadhana. We start getting purified. All the lobha, mada, all the sinful activities that we have done, they start getting burnt up. And then once we get purified, then in bhava bhakti, we slowly, that love starts awakening. That in that bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. Prema bhakti is the highest. We are looking for the Krishna prema. That is the highest goal for us. For us, liberation is not the goal. Liberation is the goal for some other people, not for us, not for devotees. For us, the goal is Krishna prema. We are looking for the prema of love of Krishna. Okay, we all want to be in a relationship with Krishna. However, we don't know what our relationship now is with Krishna. Like, were we a gopi or a gopa or a peacock or a tree or a cow? We don't know what we were in Goloka Vrindavan, right? So, but what they say is, like, now we have to serve as a master and a servant until Guru reveals our relationship with Krishna. Krishna is the master and we are the servant. We have to serve like that, in that mood, until we know our relationship. And who reveals that? It's our Guru Maharaj who reveals our relationship with Krishna. So until that, we do sadhana till we come until the stage of bhava bhakti. So bhava bhakti means spontaneous love, where like the Vrajavasis, like Radharani, like the Gopas, like Yashoda Maya, they have spontaneous love for Krishna. They all can't live without Krishna. But now we can live without Krishna, right? But we can't live without our family members, right? Like that. So we have to, that's why we are doing sadhana, like forcefully we are doing, because we don't have that love. We have to forcefully do it to awaken it through sadhana. And then doing like that, like that, like that, finally one day we'll get that bhava, like spontaneous attraction for Krishna. Okay, that is bhava. And then higher than that, the last stage is prema bhakti. So we should go for this express elevator rather than going through all these karma kanda, sakama karma, niskama karma yoga, gnana, ashtanga yoga, and then bhakti yoga. This will take ages, janmas and janmas and janmas and janmas, many lifetimes it will take. So it's when we know that finally we have to undergo bhakti yoga, why not take it up, be intelligent and take it up, take up bhakti yoga directly. Okay. So now 10 to 16. Karma kanda to karma yoga. So karma kanda means what you do for your sense gratification. Karma yoga means you don't do it for your sense gratification. You do it to please Krishna. Okay. So if a person is too attached to material life and cannot perform nishkama karma yoga, then what? They will tell you the cycle of sacrifice now. This is also very important. For them, Krishna describes the yoga ladder from lowest rung and gradually moving higher from karma kanda to karma yoga. So we saw that this thing, right? From next to first was animal life, then karma kanda, then comes karma yoga, sakama and nishkama karma yoga. So that is karma yoga. It comes under karma yoga. So it's telling from karma kanda to karma yoga. So Srila Prabhupada ends all quotes in section.
Mataji,
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Can you explain the second point again?
Which point, Prabhuji? Here for them, Krishna. That, huh?
From lowest rung and gradually move higher from karma kanda to
Yoga.
karma yoga.
Yeah, yoga ladder, Prabhuji, they're showing from the lowest. So the lowest is what? Animal life. Animal life is what? Just eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Then above that is what? Karma kanda. Karma kanda means what's better than animal life. You're at least, karma kanda means you're doing something. I mean, like you're performing a sacrifice for your sense gratification. Like you're doing a yajna so that you want to go to heavenly planets. But it is for your sense gratification. So that is karma kanda. Karma yoga means what? Not for your sense gratification. So that is one more higher stage. So from the lowest, now we are going above. So karma yoga means what? Not for your sense gratification. You are doing any activity to please Krishna. So like that, next level, and finally from Gnana to Ashtanga to finally you come to Bhakti Yoga, which is the topmost. So from the lowest rung, that is the lowest is animal life, and gradually moving higher, highest is Bhakti Yoga. Okay, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Hari Bol. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada ends all the purports in section 3 by glorifying the supremacy and the need of Sankirtan Yagna. So ultimately, that's what Srila Prabhupada, he encourages Bhakti Yoga. Sankirtan Yagna is nothing but the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Okay. He always says that is the ultimate. In section 3, that is why he glorifies Bhakti Yoga. Okay. So 3.10. Saha yagnaha prajaha srishtva पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वम् एषवोस्तु इष्टकामधुक्. Okay, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and bless them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yagna," sacrifice, because its performance will bestow you everything desirable for living happy and achieving liberation. So now Krishna is explaining that at the beginning of creation, see, when he made the creation, so through Vishnu it happened, right? Mahavishnu, he starts the creation. So that time when he created the living beings, along with the living beings, he created sacrifices, yagnas. Okay, so he instructed them to perform these yagnas, because when you make such offerings, like you get all what you want, like you for your sense gratification, whatever you want. When you do that yagna, you satisfy the demigods, and the demigods give you whatever you want. Okay, what kind of, whether it could be happiness or comfort or spiritual progress, whatever you want. Okay, so by performing this yagna, Vishnu, he said that people could be happy in the material world while gradually becoming Krishna conscious. Okay, so when the living beings were created by Mahavishnu, the yagnas were also created so that they have this connection, with Krishna. Right? When they perform this yagna, they may think they are satisfying the demigods, but we all know that the ultimate yagna bhokta is Vishnu. Right? Even though they think they are worshipping the demigods, but indirectly that sacrifice, it goes to Vishnu or Krishna, right? Who is the yagna bhokta. So we are trying to indirectly get in touch with Krishna. Okay, so that is why these sacrifices were created for the living beings. They can have their enjoyment, comforts, or happiness, whatever they want, through by performing these sacrifices for the demigods. Okay. So next, Devan. Now we'll see actually that cycle of sacrifice, wherein you will clearly understand how. Okay, in the next slide, I think you will get the PPT where everything will be clear for you. Devan bhavaya tanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah param avapsyata. So translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The demigods, see, when the people, they perform a sacrifice, the demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you. And thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. Okay, so here that's what Krishna is explaining. When the humans, they perform sacrifices, yagnas, the demigods, they become pleased. And in turn, they give whatever they want. Whatever necessities they want, like rain, food, or resources, or whatever they want, they will give. So that the people can live comfortably. So this mutual cooperation between the humans and the demigods, this ensures that everything is going on well. Okay, so that's why the yagnas are there. So they worship the demigods, and the demigods get pleased, and in turn the demigods give whatever they want. So like this, that mutual cooperation is going on. Okay, so that prosperity will reign for all. See, this is the cycle of sacrifice. It's very important. Okay. See, first Krishna. You can see Krishna, he gave the Vedas to Brahma, the Shastras to Brahma, and Brahma gave them to Vedavyas, and Vedavyas, he wrote the Vedas. You can see, right? This is the cycle of sacrifice. It starts from Krishna. Krishna, he gave the Vedas to Brahma, and Brahma, he gave them to Vedavyas. Vedavyas, he wrote them in the form of books. Okay? And then what is written in the Vedas are prescribed duties. Prescribed duties are written in the Vedas. Okay, and what is the sacrifice that we perform to the demigods? That are mentioned in the prescribed duties. And the prescribed duties are mentioned in the Vedas. So if we do our prescribed duties, that itself is a sacrifice to the demigods. Okay, so that we should understand. So the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas are a sacrifice to the demigods. And what happens when we do that sacrifice to the demigods? The demigods become pleased and they give us rain. Okay, when we get rain, what happens? The crops grow. We get grain, right? And when grains come, what happens? We cook food. And what do we do indirect again? That food is offered to Krishna. And that becomes prasadam. And again the cycle repeats. Again from Krishna, the Vedas are given to Brahma. And Brahma again Vedavyasa. And this cycle repeats. Okay, so everybody understood the cycle of sacrifice? How you can get connected to God through sacrifice. Okay, when you're not acting for your sense gratification, but slowly you're getting purified by doing the prescribed duties. Okay, and then you're through the demigods get pleased. I mean, demigods getting pleased is nothing but they are offering it to Vishnu or Krishna. And when they get pleased, they come out in the form of rain. And rain means when they fall on the crops, you get the grain, and that grain you cook and you offer it as prasadam to Krishna. So it is like becoming spiritualized. You're connecting yourself to Krishna through the cycle of sacrifice. Okay, so that is the thing. Yes.
Mataji,
Yeah.
Mataji, I am weak in the mantras, so how can I in a simpler way offer food to Krishna?
No, you don't need to know any mantras, Prabhuji. You can, with your Krishna knows any language, Prabhuji. Is not, mantras are not necessary. You can just tell Krishna, please, I'm offering this to you, Krishna, please honor it. Thank you so much. You've given me so much today. Today I've made this preparation. You can explain nicely. You can tell, see, this is there, this rice is there, this curry is there, and this raita is there, this paratha is there. It is made like this. With love, if you tell, Krishna understands the language of love, Prabhuji. It is not like mantras. In fact, Krishna hates mantras. He doesn't like this, what the Brahma Samhita, he doesn't like at all. And in fact, he likes the gopis scolding him. The gopis scold him. Oh, black person. They call him Krishna. They call him, yo, Krishna, you're black. Like that. So whatever they scold him, the gopis, they scold him. That is those are like mantras for him. But he doesn't like these Vedic mantras that they say om, om, om. He is like, no, he doesn't like all those. He likes when you treat him with a relationship, Prabhuji. When you develop that love for Krishna, he likes that. It's not mantras that is important. Don't try to be mechanical with Krishna. Okay, try to have a relationship with Krishna. That becomes sweet. Out of love, whatever comes, out of innocence, whatever comes, Krishna likes. So when you offer it, just simply say with love, oh Krishna, this is what I have. I have this papad or fryams. I've made this sambar or this paneer curry or this paratha I have made. Hope you like what I prepared for you. Thank you so much for all this, Krishna. Please honor, and then happily Krishna will definitely have it. So you can just tell like that, Prabhuji. No, not mantras are not required.
Mataji. So before eating, what should we do? Like before eating food, what should we say?
No, actually, Prabhuji, if you come to ISKCON, actually we have mantras for offering. But initially, I'm telling you, because now you're not initiated and you're not well versed with the shlokas. You can just normally say whatever you prepared. You keep a separate plate for offering it to Krishna, because we should not offer in the plate that we eat, right? So we just take a new plate or whatever, an unused plate, and then we put all the items like curry in a bowl, rice in a plate, and curd in one plate, or parathas in a plate. So, and you put all, and on each you put a tulasi, and you just offer it to the Lord. That is more than enough. With your heart and love, you tell Krishna, I made these preparations today, so you please kindly honor. Thank you so much. You can say that, and after 10 minutes, you can honor the same food after Krishna has his prasadam. That's all, Prabhuji. It's very simple.
Yes.
Okay.
Mataji, sorry to interrupt. I think you have not switched on your battery. It should not get disconnected, Mataji.
I don't know, Mataji. It's not working out. It's actually on, Mataji. I don't know why it is not working properly.
Because it should not get disconnected. That's why I wanted to tell you. Sorry, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
No. I'm actually seeing, Madhu. It has come from 10 to 8%. I don't know what to do. It's connected actually. I don't know. Okay. So this is this. Hopefully it doesn't get disconnected, Mataji. It's come from 10 to 8 even after charging. I don't know what is the reason.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So this is the cycle of sacrifice. Now let's go to the next. See, by performance of yagnas, all activities become purified. Okay. As it is stated in the Vedas. Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi Sattva Shuddhau Dhruva Smriti Smriti Lambe Sarva Granthinam Vipra Mokshaha. So by performance of yagna, one's eatables become sanctified. See, because yagna means you are offering it to Krishna. Whatever we are eating, we are offering it to Krishna. So we are not eating for our own sense gratification. So first we are offering it to Krishna, and then it becomes purified. Krishna has it, and then we honor it as prasadam. But if we don't offer it to Krishna and we eat for our own sense gratification, it is like we are eating sin, right? Because when we are cooking, we kill so many living entities, invisible bacteria in the vegetables or wherever in air, we kill. So we are eating a lot of sin. But when we offer the same food to Krishna, it is like it becomes sanctified, it becomes purified, and we can honor it as prasadam. And we become purified by eating that prasadam. Okay, by the purification of existence, finer tissues in the memory become becomes sanctified, and when memory is sanctified, one can think of the path of liberation. See, the way you live, the way you eat, is it practically shows. See, that purity also comes. The more you eat vegetables, fruits, your mind and your purity, your body language itself will be different. You get less anger. You're more peaceful, calm. When you eat spicy or sour or whatnot kind of hot items or all those, your mode of passion increases more. The sattva guna reduces. So it all depends on the kind of food that you eat. That is also there. Okay, that's why even when you offer it to Krishna, also you don't offer spicy food or hot food. Like that. You just, if you see, they just off. In curries, they generally use half mirchi or at most one mirchi for that spice. They don't use. They don't offer very spicy items to Lord Krishna because it will burn his tongue also, right? So they don't use too much spicy items and all that. Okay. So all these combined together lead to Krishna consciousness. Okay. So 3.12 Ishtan Bogan hi vo deva dasyante yagna bhavitaha ter dattan apradayabhyo yo bhunte stena eva saha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yagna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So here, what are they saying? See, the demigods are basically, they're the agents, right? The agents who supply all the necessities of life, like rain, sunlight, food, air, and other resources. So when we perform yagna or sacrifice properly, the demigods, they get pleased and they will give us all these necessities, like you see in the PPT, right? If you worship them, if you do the sacrifice, they will give you what you want. But if you try to enjoy those resources without offering them back in the form of yagna, you are considered to be a thief. See, you're enjoying that sunlight freely, you're enjoying the air freely, you're enjoying the water freely, but you're not thanking them through sacrifice or a yagna. You're just enjoying them. Then you're becoming a thief. So that's what they're saying. See, if we try to enjoy the nature's gift for selfish sense gratification and don't offer anything in return to the demigods through sacrifice, we are like thieves. We're just enjoying for our sense gratification without paying, without thanking the demigods for what they are giving. right? See, try to understand, like, this is the grain that you're eating, or the water you're drinking, the air you breathe, and even sunlight. These are all supplied by the demigods under the direction of Krishna. So by performing yagnas or doing these prescribed duties as an offering to God, okay, like offering the sacrifice means like you're feeding the poor, or offering food before eating, chanting, or other devotional acts. So when we are doing these, we are returning a portion of what we receive. Okay, so we are trying to express our gratitude to all. But if we consume without offering, it's like taking a gift and never thanking the giver. You're taking their gift, all, everything, light, rain, sunshine, everything you're taking, but you're not thanking them. So that's like theft, right? So that's what they're saying. We are thieves. But if we do that sacrifice and thank them, that is, then we are like grateful for whatever. I mean, like, even the demigods get pleased. Okay. So 3.13. Yagna Shishtashinah Santo Muchante Sarva Kilbishaihi Bunjate tu Agham Papa Ye Pachanti Atma Karanat. So actually, indirectly, we don't have to please the demigods, actually, because we know that there are 36,000 crores of 36 crores of demigods. So it's very hard for us to individually thank each demigod. So what do we do? Who is the main? They are all agents, 36 crore demigods. Who is the main person? Krishna. So if we worship Krishna, we satisfy Krishna, it's like we satisfy all of them. So if we practice Krishna consciousness, it's like we are satisfying the demigods indirectly. So we don't have to go, we don't have to do yagna for Indra, yagna for Chandra, or yagna for each Vayu, Agni, not required. So if you just do for Krishna, all are satisfied. It's like if you pour water to the root of the tree, the whole tree is nourished, right? So you don't have to pour separately to the branch, to the trunk, to the leaves, flowers, fruits, nothing required. So we just pour to the root. So if you just thank Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna, by listening to Prabhupada's speeches, by reading Prabhupada's books, doing devotional service to Krishna, it's like you're thanking the demigods for what they are supplying. Right? So if you satisfy Krishna, automatically everybody is satisfied. Okay? So that's the thing, big thing. So translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. So this we have discussed, right? So whatever food that we have prepared, we have to first offer it to the Lord, right? And because it's like we are thanking Krishna for giving this food. Thank you so much, Krishna, for what you've given us. So first, you please honor. So this is what I prepared today. And in fact, you can even explain if you know how it is. Prepared. See, I've added this. I thought you will like this. I've added. If you prepared a sweet, so you can say I've added kishmish. I've added cashews. I've added this for your for extra taste. Hope you like it, Krishna. So you can nicely, out of love, you can offer all these, and you can talk to Krishna like that, and you can tell him, and you can leave the offerings for 10 minutes by adding a tulsi on top, and then after, close the curtain, and after 10 minutes you can take it and honor it as prasadam. But those who don't offer it, they prepare it, but they have it. What they eat is only sin, because they prepare for themselves. Then only they'll be tasting it on this thing on the stove, and they're preparing itself in the kadai itself. They'll be tasting because they are doing it for their sense gratification. But when we're offering it to Krishna, we don't taste, right? Because Krishna is the first person who should taste it. So, but people who do it for their own enjoyment, they taste, whether it is tasting nice. They put their finger in the spoon and they taste, very nice, very nice. They enjoy it. So such people, they are eating sin. Okay, that's what they're saying here.
Mataji,
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Mataji, but we have to taste the food na before cooking. So
No,
after tasting it,
no, we should not taste, Prabhuji. That's why we should use measurements. We should be careful. We should not taste before offering it to Krishna. And that's why, sometimes we put salt separately in a small thing and we put it to Krishna and tell him, Krishna, in case the salt is a little bit less, I'm putting the salt and you put tulsi in the salt and you put that also there. Right?
yes,
But we are not allowed to taste before we offer it to Krishna. That's why we have to be careful with the measurements. Then that's why the devotees, they use measurements and they will once initially it will be difficult, but as you get used to, you will get used to this quantity, this much is needed. You will understand. Okay, Prabhuji.
yes,
Yeah.
Mataji.
3.14 अन्नाद् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्याद् अन्नसम्भवः यज्ञाद् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagna, and yagna is born of prescribed duties. So that is what we saw, right, in that cycle of sacrifice. We all living beings, we live on food. And how is the food got? From grains. And how are the grains produced? From rains. And how do we get rains? By performing yagna or sacrifices, right? And how is yagna performed? By doing the prescribed duties. And where are the prescribed duties? That will be said in the next shloka. They come from the Shastras. And where are the Shastras coming from? Krishna. Right? So next, that only they'll show and see. See, karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagne pratishthitam. So translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So regulated activities, see, are prescribed in the Vedas, the Shastras, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this cycle repeats, okay? That's what they're saying. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the acts of sacrifice. So that is the reason why we perform sacrifice. By we are indirectly we are connected to Krishna by performing the sacrifice. Okay, so that is the main reason. That is the cycle of sacrifice. Somehow we are getting connected with Krishna. Okay, 3.16. And this is the last shloka for the class today. Evam pravartitam chakram nanu vartayatiha yah aghayur indriya ramo mogam partha jivati. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice thus established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. Okay, so that's it next. Okay, so if a person he does not live by performing sacrifice to Krishna or the demigods indirectly, when you're doing it for the demigods, it is like yagna it directly reaches Krishna. You don't do it, it means that you are satisfying your senses, right? For your sense gratification is earlier we discussed, right? We'll be doing good or bad karma. When we do anything for our sense gratification, it is good or bad karma, and because of which we have to come back again to enjoy or suffer the result of that. So we'll be like this, roaming in this cycle of birth and death. Okay, so living only for satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. So he is always stuck up in this in the material world, cycle of birth and death. Okay, so with this we'll stop. That's why now Krishna is saying, if you want to get liberated, the only way is Krishna consciousness. Okay, practice Krishna consciousness if you want liberation from Maya. So Maya always makes you act as a puppet using the trigunas. You have no option. You are like a puppet in the hands of Maya. If you don't want to be a puppet in the hands of Maya, you have to take up Krishna consciousness. Then you will come about the three modes. You will come to the mode of pure goodness. So that is the only way out. Practicing Krishna consciousness is the only way out. Otherwise, there is no way you can get out from Maya. Krishna himself says, my Maya is duratyaya. It's very difficult, impossible to, it's very difficult to overcome Maya, because Maya, she knows the in and out of our thing. She knows even our weaknesses, what we don't know. And she will try to, attach us to this material world. Okay, so we should be very, very careful. So to come out of that, always be in the association of devotees and always try to practice Krishna consciousness. Either we should be chanting some or the other activity in Krishna consciousness we should be doing. Otherwise, if you are idle, it means Maya, it's time for Maya to attack you. Okay, so we should be very careful, right? Somehow or the other, we should be engaged in Krishna consciousness. At home, maybe cooking prasadam or chanting around, reading Prabhupada books. So whatever it is, listening to a speech or whatever. Okay, so Hare Krishna. So we'll try to stop here for today.
Hare
And
Krishna.